In late August 1921, deep in the misty hollows of West Virginia, 10,000 armed men tied red bandanas around their necks. They grabbed hunting rifles and surplus army weapons, marching determinedly toward the Appalachian ridges to fight for their lives.
Facing them across a fortified mountain was an entrenched army, equipped with heavy machine guns and biplanes. It was not the Civil War, nor a foreign invasion, but the largest armed labor insurrection in American history. 10,000 working men stood against a corporate empire and the government, in a forgotten war for basic human dignity. Stand inside the dense forests of Logan County a century ago, and the quiet mountain peace would completely deceive you. Beneath this serene landscape lay vast veins of bituminous coal, the black gold fueling the rise of modern America. To power the booming factories of New York and Chicago, millions of tons of coal were dug out by hand. Yet the men who crawled into the subterranean darkness lived under a brutal system of near-feudal corporate slavery. They spent 14 hours a day in suffocating shafts, where deadly methane gas and collapsing rock roofs were constant threats. If a miner died underground, the company paid nothing, simply hiring another desperate worker off the morning train. These coal towns were complete corporate fiefdoms, where every house, church, and dirt street was company-owned. Miners were never paid in real American money, but in company scrip, metal tokens only valid at company-owned stores. Prices were jacked up so high for food and tools that miners remained trapped in inescapable generational debt. To crush all talk of unions, operators unleashed the notorious Baldwin Felts Agency, a private mercenary army of enforcers. They spied on workers, planted secret informants, and brutally assaulted anyone caught whispering about workers' rights. Stripped of their constitutional rights, the miners lived under total corporate martial law in their own mountain home. By 1920, the United Mine Workers organized a massive drive, and thousands of brave miners secretly signed union cards. The coal barons struck back instantly, sending armed thugs to evict thousands of union families into the freezing mud. Families were forced to live in squalid canvas tent colonies along the rocky banks of the Tug River. Tensions boiled over on May 19, 1920, in the tiny railroad depot town of Matewan. 18 armed Baldwin Felts detectives, led by the Felts brothers, walked proudly toward the train depot after evictions. Blocking their path was Matewan's defiant young police chief, a legendary former miner named Sid Hatfield. Hatfield attempted to arrest the mercenaries for carrying unauthorized weapons, surrounded by armed miners in upper windows. A heated argument erupted on the wet street, and suddenly, a single gunshot shattered the damp mountain air. In seconds, Matewan dissolved into a chaotic, ferocious gunfight between the mercenaries and local miners.
When the smoke cleared, 10 men lay dead in the street, including both notorious Felts brothers. Sid Hatfield became an instant working-class folk hero, but the coal barons swore bloody revenge. On August 1, 1921, Hatfield walked unarmed up the stone courthouse steps in Welch for a trial.
Waiting at the top, Baldwin Felts gunmen pulled their pistols and assassinated Hatfield in broad daylight.
The brutal murder of Sid Hatfield was the spark that ignited a long, smoldering mountain powder keg.
Word spread like wildfire down every mountain hollow. Peaceful protest was over. War had begun.
Governor declares martial law.
Over 5,000 furious miners rallied at the state capitol in Charleston, demanding justice and liberty.
Union leader Frank Keeney stood before the roaring crowd and delivered an uncompromising, historic ultimatum. If the state government refused to disarm company thugs and restore freedom, the miners would do it themselves.
By late August, thousands of armed miners gathered in Marmet, forming an organized volunteer civilian army. They tied bright red bandanas around their necks as a battle symbol, giving birth to the term redneck.
Their mission was clear: march 50 miles, smash the company police regime, and free their imprisoned brothers. Standing directly between the miners and their goal was Logan County's ruthless, corrupt sheriff, Don Chaffin. Bankrolled by coal barons, Chaffin assembled 3,000 heavily armed deputies, mercenaries, and state militia. Chaffin selected his natural mountain wall for defense, the steep, heavily wooded ridges of Blair Mountain. Chaffin's forces dug deep trenches along the high ridges, fortifying key mountain passes with deadly machine guns. As 10,000 miners climbed into the foothills, two American armies stood poised for total slaughter. On August 25, 1921, the first shots echoed through the valley, igniting a catastrophic mountain war. What began as small skirmishes rapidly exploded into full-scale trench warfare across a 12-mile front. Hundreds of miners were decorated World War I veterans, immediately applying advanced tactical battlefield skills. They established sophisticated supply lines, command posts, and field hospitals, staffed by volunteer civilian nurses. For 5 relentless days, the Appalachian Mountains thundered with the roar of continuous, deafening gunfire. High-powered rifle bullets chewed through tree trunks, stripping bark and showering the forest floor like hail. Men fought desperate, bloody, hand-to-hand skirmishes across steep, muddy ravines in dense morning fog. The humid air hung heavy with the acrid stench of burnt gunpowder, fresh pine, and blood.
Terrified of losing their high ground defense, the coal barons escalated the war to an unimaginable level.
Private vintage biplanes were hired to fly directly over the mountain battlefield. Pilots dropped homemade aerial bombs packed with dynamite, scrap metal, and toxic gas onto the miners below.
Huge explosions ripped through the forest canopy, sending shockwaves and lethal shrapnel tearing across camps. It was the first time in United States history that civilian citizens were bombed from the sky.
Yet, despite heavy machine guns and bombs raining down, the determined miner army refused to retreat. By August 30, the miners breached Chaffin's defenses, threatening to completely overrun the Logan fortress.
The coal baron's private army was crumbling on the absolute verge of total and humiliating defeat.
Just as the miners prepared for the final charge into Logan, the distant rumble of military trains shook the tracks. President Warren G. Harding declared federal martial law, ordering over 2,000 United States Army infantry into West Virginia. Alongside regular infantry came a full squadron of Martin MB-2 bombers, commanded by General Billy Mitchell. The arrival of the federal military changed the entire balance of the war in an instant. Miners had fought against private thugs and corrupt police, but they were deeply patriotic American veterans.
They had sworn never to fire a single bullet at the uniform of their own country.
As federal bugles echoed through the misty mountain passes, the miner army quietly began to stand down. In an orderly fashion, thousands of men dismantled their rifles and hid them beneath the forest floor. Thousands quietly boarded special passenger trains, returning peacefully back to their home hollows. The thunderous roar of battle on Blair Mountain finally faded into a heavy, eerie silence. Over 1 million rounds had been fired, leaving up to 100 men dead on the mountain slopes.
In the immediate aftermath, nearly 1,000 miners were indicted on charges of murder and treason.
The Union was financially broken, and membership in southern West Virginia collapsed to almost nothing.
The wealthy coal operators celebrated what they believed was an absolute, permanent victory.
Yet history would prove that Blair Mountain was not a defeat, but a monumental turning point.
The blood spilled on these slopes exposed the horrific brutality of the coal camps to the entire world. The nation could no longer ignore the brutal exploitation powering its modern industrial engine.
A decade later, their tremendous sacrifice laid the direct foundation for the historic New Deal. The National Labor Relations Act finally granted American workers the legal right to organize without violence. Today, the thick Appalachian wilderness has completely reclaimed the trenches and ridges of Blair Mountain. The gun smoke has vanished, and the terrifying roar of dropping biplane bombs is long gone. Yet deep beneath this quiet forest floor, the ground still remembers the courage of the Redneck Army.
10,000 working men stood against impossible odds, demanding nothing more than basic human respect.
History does not disappear with time. It quietly echoes beneath our very feet. Thank you for watching America's forgotten battle for dignity on the slopes of Blair Mountain. If you want to uncover more untold historical stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Tell us in the comments below, Which forgotten historical rebellion or lost battle should we bring to life next?